You probably correctly identified the first picture in this video as Stonehenge. Well, this is Reecehenge. My husband built it for me a few years ago as a Christmas gift. I showed you a picture of Stonehenge because, like listening skills, Stonehenge is a little bit of a mystery. Listening skills are a little bit of a mystery too, because no two people appreciate exactly the same listening skills. Nonetheless, there do seem to be some listening habits that are more effective than others. This is Module 3, Video 3 on better listening skills. Well, let's get right into it. The first thing you can do to be a better listener is simply to respond. Now, not everybody has a ready response. Not everybody is a highly verbal person. So you can, if you are not a highly verbal person and you need a second to think about things, maybe even a whole day, ask for it. At least the other person you're talking to will know that you're actively listening, you're thinking, you need a little bit of time to process and respond. So at the very least, say something like, okay, or let me think about it for a second, or something like that. The second tip is control your nonverbal communication, especially if the person you're talking to is upset with you. There are ways to close down a conversation and ways to open up a good conversation. So let's say somebody came to me and they said, hey, listen, I need to talk to you about this thing that you're doing that bothers me. I might go like this. What? Or instead, I could go like this. Oh, what's on your mind? Well, you can tell that the second response is going to open up a much better conversation than the first response. So control it. Good listeners usually look at the other person who's talking. They put away distractions and they just seem more focused. So that leads me right into the third tip. Focus on the other person, not on yourself, and certainly not on your cell phone. Drop what you're doing, especially if somebody's really upset. Drop what you're doing. If you can't do it right away, you might say something like, listen, I'm in the middle of this thing. I've got to finish it. I'm under a deadline. Let me call you back, or let me get back to you. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. People are pretty likely to understand and appreciate that, and as long as you follow through, they'll be good. We definitely want to put the cell phones down, though. When someone's talking to you, it's very disrespectful to be texting or something like that on your cell phone. Another thing you can do to be a better listener is to simply ask questions when the person is talking. Follow through with questions. You get them to open up, get them to elaborate. That's going to make your communication partner feel like you really do care about them. And another thing you can do is don't talk about yourself, particularly when somebody is upset. Don't make it about you. Don't start telling your own stories. Try to get that person to talk about their own problems, and then at the end, when they've said everything they have to say, you can share a little bit about yourself. And even in a normal conversation when nobody's upset, that's also a really good plan, because we have a tendency to look at self-focused speakers as being kind of self-involved. It's just not a really good way to seem like you're a good listener, whether it's in a work situation or a personal situation. The next listening tip I have is try not to give unwanted advice. The best thing you can say to somebody is, do you want me to give you some advice, or are you just using me as a sounding board? Most of the time, people will tell you which thing they want, and they'll appreciate the fact that you asked and didn't just assume that you wanted to solve their problems, or that you were better at solving the problem than they were. The next thing you can do is try really, really hard not to minimize other people's feelings. I said in the last video, other people's feelings might seem over the top to you, but really that's not fair. Everybody's entitled to feel like they feel. And if you want to really have a good relationship with somebody, you'll allow them that and respect whatever they're going through at the level they're going through it. Another tip for good listening is to remember whether you are a thinking or feeling oriented person, and also pay attention to whether the person you're talking to is, which of those things they are. Like I said in the last video, usually pretty easy to tell. So if you're a feelings oriented person, Try not to take what they're saying too personally. If you're a thinking-oriented person, try to consider what the person is going through and that they might be having an emotional reaction to you. If you really want to see an interesting couple of supplementary videos, you'll watch the two that I put up. One of them is Kurt and Blythe. I think it says Mr. and Mrs. L. I know some of you have watched it already, but it actually goes with this module. And there's another one of my husband and I where they turn the camera on us and ask us the same questions we ask them. You might find it to be pretty amusing because they've been married not quite as long as we have. Next week we'll talk about conflict, and I'll see you then.